Death came without warning, silent, colorless, and impossible to resist. Beneath the bleak sky of the endless sky plains, a young cultivator lay sprawled in a pool of blackened blood, his life hanging by a thread. Agony poison, one of the 10 absolute poisons, gnawed relentlessly at his heart, sealing his fate with cruel certainty. And yet against all reason he still breathed. Not far away, a man dressed in plain robes watched calmly, his eyes cold and unreadable. To him this was neither a rescue nor an act of mercy, but a gamble, one that might decide his own survival in the cultivation world. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Silvermoon immediately sensed the sudden fluctuation in Han Li's movements and could not help but ask in alarm, "Master, what has happened?" Han Li stroked his chin, his expression grave as he muttered to himself, "There are 2 cultivators who have stopped roughly 5 kilometers away. One is at the core formation stage, the other at foundation establishment. The aura of that foundation establishment cultivator feels familiar. How strange. It seems to be Feng Yue." After a brief silence, Silvermoon cautiously asked, "Do you wish for me to use my artifact spirit body to observe them?" "Forget it." Han Li shook his head slightly. "You have yet to recover from your injuries. Even with my current foundation establishment cultivation, I can still monitor their movements with my spiritual sense until they depart." Silvermoon did not voice any objections. Soon after, Han Li closed his eyes once more and returned to his silent meditation. Some time later, Han Li suddenly let out a startled exclamation, shock flashing across his face. This time, Silvermoon tactfully remained silent as she watched his brows knit tightly together, his expression shifting repeatedly. "Senior soul divergence," Han Li asked at last, his voice low, "if I recall correctly. You once said there are many techniques capable of dissolving my baleful qi. Is it true that most of them originate from Buddhist cultivation?" "That is correct," Monarch Soul Divergence replied lazily. "Confucian and Taoist paths also possess their own methods to dispel baleful qi, but none are as effective as those of the Buddhist sects." Han Li's eyes flickered as he continued. "Then is it also true that one of the most distinctive traits of Buddhist techniques is that most of them emit 7-colored light when activated?" "That is indeed the case." "Why do you ask?" Monarch Soul Divergence responded, a hint of curiosity entering his tone. Lowering his head, Han Li murmured to himself, "In that case, this person may yet prove useful. This might be an opportunity." Monarch Soul Divergence grew somewhat irritated by Han Li's evasiveness. Just as he was about to press further, Han Li's gaze hardened with resolve. Without another word, he rose to his feet and shot out of the cave atop a magic tool, transforming into a streak of azure light. Both Silvermoon and Monarch Soul Divergence were caught off guard by his sudden departure. Yet seeing the urgency in his actions, they could only suppress their questions for the moment. Han Li soon arrived at a small forest, rarely seen within the endless sky plains. The forest spanned roughly half a kilometer, composed of sparse, low-growing trees. At its center lay an open clearing about 30 meters wide, where the 2 cultivators had halted. A blue-robed cultivator lay face down upon the ground, utterly motionless. A black stain of blood marred his back, and it was impossible to tell whether he still lived. A dazzling 7-colored light enveloped his body. Nearby stood another cultivator, a purple-robed old man with sharp, eagle-like eyes repeatedly striking the radiant barrier with a fire-red flying sword. Though the 7-colored light barrier was extraordinary, it lacked a master's control and had begun to tremble violently, flickering unstably under the relentless assault. Han Li made no effort to conceal his arrival, immediately alerting the purple-robed old man below. Startled, the old man swept his spiritual sense over Han Li. Upon discovering that Han Li was merely at the foundation establishment stage, he visibly relaxed. Killing intent surged within his eyes as he raised his hand and unleashed a pitch-black streak toward Han Li at astonishing speed, a tri-pointed stake shrouded in dense black qi. Han Li coldly snorted. With a casual motion, he brushed the top of his head. A black-green cloud surged forth, rapidly coalescing into a gigantic hand nearly a meter long, which swatted effortlessly at the incoming streak. The purple-robed old man's expression changed drastically. Before he could even react, the tri-pointed stake was seized mid-air. In an instant, the spiritual connection between him and the artifact was severed. The massive hand then turned and descended toward him. Panic-stricken, the old man hastily formed incantation seals, commanding his red flying sword to defend him. Yet without warning, the black-green hand vanished only to reappear an instant later as a clenched fist 3 meters above his head, smashing downward with terrifying force. Ah! A shrill, miserable scream echoed through the clearing as the purple-robed old man was crushed into a bloody pulp. The black-green fist unfolded once more into a hand and casually swept across the remains, extracting an egg-sized orb of green light. Immediately afterward, the hand shot back toward Han Li, circling him once, before reverting into a nascent soul. The nascent soul perched itself on Han Li's shoulder with a beaming grin, holding the tri-pointed stake in one hand and the green orb in the other. Han Li's expression subtly shifted at the sight. During his previous siege by the soaring tribe's cultivators, he had not once revealed his second nascent soul, reserving it as a final means of escape. Yet now its strength far exceeded his expectations. A mere transformation technique had effortlessly annihilated a core formation cultivator without the slightest resistance. With that thought, Han Li descended slowly toward the rainbow-hued barrier. The red flying sword had already fallen to the ground, its master slain. It lay there motionless, emitting only a faint residual glow. Han Li ignored it entirely and walked straight toward the 7-colored barrier, carefully examining it. He quickly discerned that the barrier originated from a blue jade pendant floating at its center. Suspended about a meter above the blue-robed cultivator's body, the jade pendant radiated 7-colored light. Strange Buddhist characters occasionally surfaced within the glow. It was the very pendant Han Li had previously shown to Silvermoon, inscribed with the words Feng of Ning. After studying it for a moment, Han Li slowly asked Well Senior, was this magic tool refined by a Buddhist sect? Monarch Soul Divergence snorted coldly and replied indifferently. The materials and craftsmanship are unmistakably Buddhist. Moreover, it was refined by a high-grade Buddhist cultivator. Otherwise, it could never have withstood the attacks of a core formation magic treasure for so long. It seems there is indeed some connection between a Buddhist sect and the Feng clan. Han Li felt a surge of joy upon hearing this confirmation, knowing his gamble had not been in vain. Stepping forward, he pressed his palm against the barrier, which was instantly enveloped in a faint layer of blue flames. With his current cultivation, he could not command large quantities of celestial ice flames, and even this meager amount pushed him to his limits. Nevertheless, it proved sufficient. Unable to endure the frigid cold, the 7-colored barrier soon collapsed with a thunderous bang. Han Li approached the blue-robed cultivator and examined the blackened bloodstain on his back, his brows furrowing deeply. The cultivator's aura was dangerously unstable and exceedingly weak. The stench of death already clung to his body. It was clear his life would not last much longer. Without hesitation, Han Li struck his body with a magic seal and exhaled a cloud of azure qi that enveloped him. With a flick of his sleeve, he flipped the young man onto his back. The moment Han Li saw his face, his blood ran cold. It was indeed Feng Yue, but his complexion was pitch black, his lips tinged with a faint purple hue. The sight was truly ghastly. Han Li grimaced. After a moment's contemplation, he spread his spiritual sense throughout Feng Yue's body, blue light flickering in his eyes. The poison had permeated every part of him. By all logic, Feng Yue should already have been dead. Troubled by this anomaly, Han Li continued his examination with utmost care. Moments later, he discovered something unusual. Reaching out, he tugged at Feng Yue's collar. With a sharp rip, part of the robe tore away, revealing a chain bearing a silver key. The key pulsed with soft white light, continuously dispersing poison concentrated at the center of Feng Yue's chest. Though that area had already turned jet black, Han Li's gaze hardened. Grasping Feng Yue's arm, he released azure spiritual qi from his palm, which quickly spread throughout the body, slowly expelling the poison. Suddenly, however, the azure qi darkened, turning pitch black as it surged back toward his hand. Agony poison. Han Li shouted, his complexion paling instantly. He withdrew his hand at once, severing his spiritual qi connection. One of the 10 absolute poisons. Monarch Soul Divergence chuckled maliciously. Youngster Han, you've wasted your effort. There is no saving this person now. Han Li rolled his eyes and snorted irritably. It may be impossible for me to remove the poison entirely, but awakening him and keeping him alive for 10 days won't be difficult. I'll merely need to consume a considerable number of spirit medicines, though whether it's worth the price remains to be seen. With that, Han Li stood up, his expression thoughtful. Silvermoon then softly suggested, Master, perhaps you should awaken him first and clarify a few matters before making your decision. Han Li nodded slowly. That makes sense. Until I understand his connection to the Buddhist sects of Great Jin, I am unwilling to take further action. As he spoke, Han Li slapped his storage pouch, producing a small white bottle in his hand. Han Li flipped the small bottle in his hand, and a fire-red pill the size of an almond dropped neatly into his palm. A trace of sorrow flashed across his face. This pill had been refined from a high-grade demon core, a precious medicine meant to bolster the spiritual power of core formation cultivators. Using it on a mere foundation establishment cultivator was nothing short of extravagant waste. Had his magic power not been sealed and had Silvermoon not been injured, he could have simply performed a soul-searching technique instead of going through all this trouble. With one hand, he gripped Feng Yue's chin and forced his mouth open with a deft twist of the wrist. With the other, he wrapped the pill in a strand of azure qi and flicked it straight into Feng Yue's mouth. Releasing his grip, Han Li reached to his waist and produced a gleaming silver needle. It shimmered with a cold, chilling light as his hand blurred into motion, stabbing it into several points across Feng Yue's body in rapid succession. Almost instantly, black blood spurted from each puncture, releasing a nauseating, foul stench into the air. Han Li straightened up, clasped his hands behind his back, and waited calmly for Feng Yue to awaken. After the time it would take to finish a cup of tea, the poisoned blood pooled thickly around Feng Yue's body. At last, Feng Yue let out a faint groan, his brows twitching as if emerging from a nightmare. Han Li's gaze flickered. With a snap of his fingers, a gust of wind surged forth, halting the flow of the poisoned blood. At the same time, his shoulder trembled lightly as his second nascent soul transformed into a black cloud and silently vanished into the forest. It's you! Feng Yue slowly opened his eyes and clearly saw Han Li standing before him. He cried out in alarm and struggled to sit upright. Han Li glanced at him indifferently. What? Surprised to see me? Was it you who saved me? Where is that traitor Feng Zhen? Feng Yue's voice was weak, yet laced with sharp vigilance. Han Li looked aside and replied casually, You mean that purple-robed man? He's dead. With great effort, Feng Yue turned his head and finally spotted the mangled remains of the purple-robed old man. Shock and deep-seated hatred surged across his face before his gaze returned to Han Li, now filled with a complicated expression. Could it be that fellow Taoist Han killed that old traitor? Feng Yue said slowly, Your abilities truly run deep. I will remember this kindness and repay you in the future. As he spoke, he took out a medicinal pill from his waist and raised it to his mouth, then attempted to stand. Yet he had barely risen halfway when his legs gave out and he collapsed back onto the ground. What's going on? I can't gather any strength at all. Panic crept across Feng Yue's face. A reward, Han Li said indifferently. It seems you still don't understand your current situation. What do you mean? Feng Yue glared at him, fury and alarm flashing in his eyes. What's happened to me? Did you place a restriction on my body? Han Li smirked faintly. You think too highly of me. If I wanted to restrain you, why would I need to use a restriction? Take a look for yourself. He flicked his hand, sending a small object spinning toward Feng Yue, a common mirror. Though utterly confused, Feng Yue gritted his teeth and glanced into it. Ah, how can this be? My face, when was I poisoned so deeply? His voice rose in terror. Could it be that old traitor used? Horrified, Feng Yue hastily reached into his storage pouch. With a flash of white light, a large pile of bottles spilled out. He rummaged through them frantically, then began stuffing pills into his mouth without regard for dosage or consequence. Han Li watched coldly, saying nothing, allowing him to exhaust himself. Afterward, Feng Yue fell silent and closed his eyes, circulating the medicinal energy in an attempt to dissolve the poison. Yet before long, his eyes snapped open again, panic flooding his expression. How is this possible? None of the antidotes are working. What kind of poison is this? Han Li replied leisurely, though I haven't encountered it personally before. It appears to be agony poison, one of the 10 absolute poisons. Feng Yu's complexion instantly turned deathly pale. Agony poison. To think they would use that against me. That old traitor must be relying on the Kong clan. I heard rumors that the Kong clan possessed such poison. The Kong clan. Han Li's brows twitched slightly. Wait, Feng Yi suddenly recalled something. Mustering his strength, he turned toward Han Li and asked urgently, Agony poison should have killed me instantly. How was I able to awaken? Han Li's expression darkened as he snorted. It seems you are completely unaware of my act of kindness. If not for the questions I needed answered, I would never have wasted a vast essence pill on you. That silver key on your neck merely delayed the poison's assault on your heart. Without it, no miraculous medicine could have brought you back. You touched it. Feng Yu exclaimed instinctively, glancing down at the silver key. After a moment, he forcibly calmed himself. I was curious, Han Li continued coolly, how a Foundation establishment cultivator could resist agony poison for so long. Naturally, I investigated. But understand this, the vast essence pill only suppresses the poison temporarily. One day it will resume its attack on your heart, and you will die without fail. After a moment's thought, Feng Yue asked nervously, the vast essence pill? I've heard it's incredibly rare. If I had another one, could I continue suppressing the poison? Han Li was momentarily surprised, then replied coldly, it would prolong your life for a time. But do you know what it's made from? It isn't an antidote, it's a breakthrough pill for core formation cultivators. It's not something you can simply purchase. Though he didn't say it outright, the implication was unmistakable. A cultivation progression pill for core formation cultivators. Feng Yi murmured, stunned. However, Han Li said with a faint smile, there is a way for you to live. Feng Yu's spirit instantly stirred. What is it? As long as you save my life, I'll agree to any condition. Han Li chuckled softly. I don't want any reward. Just answers to a few questions. That's fine, Feng Yue replied without hesitation. I'll answer everything I know. The method is simple, Han Li explained. Since agony poison has already ruined your body, you can simply exchange it. In the past, cultivators afflicted by the 10 absolute poisons survived by using possession. Possession. Feng Yi smiled bitterly, much to Han Li's surprise. Han Li raised an eyebrow. What? You find this method unacceptable? After a brief hesitation, Feng Yue sighed. Many thanks for Brother Han's kindness. But while possession might work for others, I cannot use it. Han Li suddenly realized something. You can't. Could it be that you already... I won't hide it from you, Feng Yue said bitterly. I've already used possession once before. This isn't my original body. Han Li sighed and shrugged. Then there's nothing more I can do. The 10 absolute poisons have no cure. Feng Yu's face filled with despair as he pleaded, there's truly no other way. Brother Han is extremely knowledgeable. Could you please reconsider? There's nothing to reconsider. Han Li shook his head. The 10 absolute poisons have terrified the cultivation world for countless years, precisely because they cannot be dissolved. Then, I will die soon. Feng Yue asked, his complexion ashen. That's right, Han Li replied emotionlessly. Even if you keep taking vast essence pills, you'll eventually grow resistant and perish all the same. Clutching at his final lifeline, Feng Yue steadied himself and stared rigidly at Han Li. How many vast essence pills does Brother Han possess? Can you sell them all to me? Han Li frowned slightly, then asked calmly, What? Fellow Taoist Feng wishes to buy them. I'm willing to sell, but I don't have many. How about we discuss this after you answer my questions? Ask whatever you wish, Feng Yue replied gloomily. At this point, there's nothing I won't say. Good. Han Li nodded. First, state your identity. You're not from the soaring tribes, but from a noble family of great Jin, is that correct? Feng Yue glanced at the jade pendant lying on the ground, then at the silver key hanging from his neck. Gritting his teeth, he said, Since you've already guessed it was there, any need to ask? Han Li smiled faintly, his tone aloof. Then tell me, which Ning does the Feng of Ning refer to? And just how powerful is the Feng clan? What other Ning could there be? Feng Yue replied, Naturally, it is the Feng clan of Guanning Prefecture. It can be regarded as a rather influential faction. Guanning Prefecture. Han Li narrowed his eyes slightly. The provincial capital. There are many prefectures bearing the name Guanning. Feng Yue answered, his expression turning odd. But the Feng clan of Ning resides only within Liao province. He appeared somewhat baffled by Han Li's line of questioning. Han Li nodded carelessly and did not pursue the matter of the Feng clan further. Instead, he pointed at the jade pendant on the ground and asked, How did you obtain this item? What are its origins? This pendant was passed down from my father. Feng Yue replied in surprise. It is a token of the Feng clan. Why do you ask? Han Li glanced at him and asked skeptically, A token? Don't tell me every Feng clan disciple carries a top-grade magic tool as a token. Of course not. Feng Yue shook his head. There are only 4 such tokens in the entire Feng clan. Then it seems your status within the clan is quite high, Han Li said calmly. I am the eldest son of the Feng clan, Feng Yue replied, curling his lips as a trace of pain surfaced in his eyes. Had nothing unexpected occurred, I would have become the clan head in several dozen years. Han Li was not surprised by this revelation. For such calamity to befall Feng Yue, it was clear that the Feng clan itself had suffered grave upheaval. This, however, had little to do with Han Li. Fixing his gaze on Feng Yue, he asked the question most pressing in his mind. What relationship does your Feng clan have with the Buddhist sects of Great Jin? Don't claim ignorance. That token of yours contains profound Buddhist spiritual light. Feng Yue stared blankly for a moment before answering honestly. Our Feng clan does indeed have ties to the Buddhist sects. One of our ancestors was once a lay disciple of Guan Ning's Thousand Light Temple, a branch of the Great Gold Sifting sect. In our early days, the Feng clan cultivated Buddhist techniques. However, several hundred years ago, when the Thousand Light Temple relocated from Liao province, we switched to a Confucian cultivation art. Hearing this, Han Li felt a surge of joy. Though he knew little of the Thousand Light Temple, he was well aware of the Gold Sifting sect. It was one of the 4 great sects of Great Jin. It seemed the Feng clan had genuinely practiced Buddhist cultivation in the past. Do you know any of those Buddhist techniques? Han Li asked. After hesitating briefly, Feng Yue replied, I never wished to cultivate Buddhist arts, so I do not know any of the incantations. However, our clan has preserved some of those techniques. He was clearly astonished that this mysterious cultivator had set his sights on Buddhist techniques. While Buddhist cultivation arts were extraordinarily powerful in their later stages, their progress was notoriously slow. Even within Great Jin's cultivation world, few were willing to take the initiative to walk the Buddhist path. At that moment, Monarch Soul Divergent spoke up, youngster Han. Ask him whether his ancestor cultivated a crystal relic. Only Buddhist cultivators who possess a crystal relic can cultivate techniques capable of dissolving baleful qi. In preparation for his journey to Great Jin, Han Li had once read records touching upon crystal relics. A crystal relic was a defining characteristic of Buddhist cultivators, though its manifestation varied greatly. Some formed one during core formation, others refined it at the nascent soul stage. To outsiders, they were mysterious and unfathomable existences. Yet a crystal relic was essential for cultivating many profound Buddhist techniques. As a result, cultivators of other paths, no matter how advanced their cultivation, harbored deep wariness toward Buddhist cultivators who possessed one. Agreeing with Monarch Soul Divergence's suggestion, Han Li asked Feng Yue about it. A crystal relic. Feng Yue frowned. My ancestor did cultivate one. However, due to his mediocre aptitude, he failed to break through to the nascent soul stage. Disheartened, he eventually established the Feng clan of Ning. Han Li's spirits were instantly lifted. His fortune appeared quite favorable. He might be able to obtain a technique to dissolve his baleful qi without having to search deeply within Great Jin. With that thought, Han Li smiled faintly. I have one last question. Feng Yu forced a smile. If there is anything you wish to know, feel free to ask. Why would they use agony poison on a mere foundation establishment cultivator like you? Han Li asked calmly. The 10 absolute poisons are more precious than rare spirit medicines. If they intended to capture you alive, they wouldn't have used it. And given the difference in cultivation, there was no need for a core formation cultivator to resort to such an excessive method. Feng Yue's expression darkened. That traitor Feng Zhen was a rogue Devil Dao cultivator our Feng clan once took in. He had offended a powerful expert and was being hunted down, so he knelt before our clan, begging for protection, even offering to take our surname. My grandfather sheltered him while the clan was still strong. He paused before continuing bitterly. He was later tasked with handling relations with several soaring tribes. I came here originally to find him, but I never expected him to have been compromised by the Kong clan. He lured me out and used the Kong clan's agony poison because of the restriction placed upon his body. Once a direct descendant of the Feng clan reaches foundation establishment, they can suppress his cultivation. If he hadn't launched a sneak attack with poison, I would never have been so helpless. Han Li tilted his head in contemplation. So that's how it was. Agony poison is said to be colorless and odorless. The instant a lower cultivator touches it, they fall into a coma. It seems the Kong clan harbors deep enmity toward your Feng clan. That's right, Feng Yue said grimly. The Kongjiang Jin and Feng clans are the 4 great noble cultivation clans of Guanning Prefecture. We were once neutral toward one another. But when our Feng clan weakened, the Kong clan suddenly allied with the other 2 and struck us without warning. Reduced to wandering the plains after his clan's downfall and now standing at death's door. Feng Yue's hatred toward those 3 clans ran deep. I have no interest in noble clan feuds, Han Li said indifferently. Your answers satisfy me. Now let us discuss the vast essence pills. I have about 10 enough to extend your life for roughly 10 days. Each pill is worth several thousand spirit stones. Can you truly afford them? Several thousand spirit stones, Feng Yu exclaimed in shock. Though he had anticipated their value, the price still startled him. It was comparable to a top-grade magic tool. Fine, I'll buy them, he said through gritted teeth. You carry that many spirit stones with you. Han Li raised an eyebrow, studying him with a faintly amused smile. I don't, Feng Yue admitted, but I can offer the key to the Feng clan's secret cave as collateral. He lifted the silver key from his neck and handed it over without hesitation, clearly having already made up his mind. The Feng clan's secret cave. Han Li stared at the key, but did not immediately accept it. That's right, Feng Yue said. This is the sole magic tool capable of opening the Feng clan's secret collection, preserved for over 1,000 years. As a direct descendant, the elders ordered me to flee with it when calamity struck. I've never personally entered it, but it should contain tens of thousands of spirit stones. You're offering this key as collateral? Han Li asked expressionlessly. How do I know it's genuine? And even if it is, don't tell me you have no intention of returning to your clan. What is there to return to? Feng Yue replied bleakly. To my knowledge, only a handful of servants and branch disciples escaped. I am the sole remaining direct descendant. If I die, the Feng clan's bloodline ends, and the secret collection will eventually fall into the Kong clan's hands. Better that it be used to save my life. If I cannot dissolve this poison within 10 days, The collection will be yours far better than letting the Kong clan claim it. Besides, the Buddhist techniques you desire are stored there as well. Hanli pondered in silence for a long while before finally speaking. Very well. You may use the key as collateral. But first, you must allow me to search your soul to verify the existence of the secret collection and the Buddhist techniques. I have no interest in traveling to a cave that doesn't exist. Soul search. Feng Yue's face drained of color. Isn't that something only nascent soul cultivators can do? How could that be possible? A forceful soul search does require nascent soul cultivation. Han Li replied calmly. But if the target cooperates through a special technique, it is not difficult. Moreover, this method differs from common soul searches. While it cannot probe complex matters, it can easily determine truth from falsehood. He pursed his lips, then smiled faintly, a cold glint flashing across his teeth. Seeing this, Feng Yue felt his heart tremble. As a noble clan disciple, he feared soul-searching above all else and would never have agreed under normal circumstances. But when he looked down at his blackened, poisoned skin, despair overtook him. Clenching his fists tightly, Feng Yue took a deep breath and finally made his decision. Fine, I will cooperate. But you may only search matters related to the Buddhist techniques and the secret collection. You are not permitted to look into anything else. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.